The day I had my neighbor's iron gate cut out of my road, I learned something my father would have loved. The meanest thing on a ranch isn't always a bull. Sometimes it's page 4 of an old easement. You spend 76 years thinking a legal clause is just paper. Then one Thursday morning it turns into a concrete saw, a flatbed trailer, and an HOA president watching her community entrance get hauled away like scrap. That road got its voice back before lunch. My name's Dale Whitmore, and by then I was old enough to know people will believe almost anything if it's printed on a brochure, repeated at enough meetings, and bolted to a fancy sign. My family's road had been there since 1948, built by my father after the county required an access corridor for the parcels south of our ranch. He set granite monuments along the boundary and recorded the whole thing properly, that September 24 feet wide, monument to monument private road with a right of passage for the downstream parcels and nothing more. That nothing more mattered. My father was the kind of man who made you read documents yourself. When I was 17, he took me to the county recorder's office, laid that instrument in front of me, and made me read all 5 pages at the counter. On page 4 was the clause he'd insisted on adding after watching another landowner get dragged through years of litigation over an unauthorized culvert. It said any structure placed in the corridor without the easement holder's written authorization was an unauthorized obstruction, and after 30 days written notice, the easement holder could remove it at the installer's expense without a court order. At 17, that sounds like old man insurance. At 71, it sounds like scripture. I came back to the ranch in 2007 after retiring. After my wife died, I wanted whatever time I had left on land that meant something to me. So I rebuilt pasture-fixed water lines, restored fencing, and walked that road with my instruments, checking every monument my father had set. Everything was where it belonged, 24 feet clean and open. Then the development went in on the southern parcel. Ridge-rest meadows, 180 homes, glossy renderings, expensive language, the whole performance. Their marketing started calling my road Meadow Lane, like if they gave it a charming little name, history would politely move over. I wrote the developer in 2009 and told them exactly what the road was: private property under the 1948 instrument with right of passage only. No maintenance authority, no management authority, no right to install anything inside that corridor without my written permission. They wrote back with polished nonsense about community access and design intent, never once dealing with the recorded document itself. Then the HOA formed, and by 2012 they were charging every unit a road maintenance fee, $150 a year every year for maintaining a road they didn't own and had no authority to manage. $27,000 a year. I noted it, logged it, filed it away. Sometimes the smartest thing you can do is stay quiet long enough for people to leave fingerprints on every bad decision they make. Then came the gate. In August of 2021, they installed stone pillars, iron gate panels, and a big entrance sign right on my road. I measured it the next morning with my survey rod. East post, 5.1 feet inside the monument line. West post, 5.0 feet inside. Effective width between the gate panels, just under 14 feet. Recorded width, 24. You don't spend a lifetime in surveying without developing a very personal dislike for people who treat inches like opinions. I sent objections certified mail before installation and after. Same answer every time. Brochures, HOA, language community role. All that polished nonsense people use when they don't have law on their side, but they do have confidence. For 4 years, I let that gate sit there. Not because I forgot, and not because I accepted it, but because I was watching. Watching fees pile up. Watching board presidents rotate through like bad weather. Watching people confuse repetition with ownership. Then this spring, the new HOA president, Sandra Bain, sent me a demand letter so arrogant I laughed, standing in my kitchen. She wanted me to repave the northern 400 feet of my own road at my own expense, replace culverts at the entrance, and sign a co-management agreement giving the HOA authority over maintenance decisions. That letter cited their established road management rights over Meadow Lane. No recorded instrument, no amendment, no actual authority, just attitude. That Sunday I told my daughter Lena during our usual call. She's a title attorney, and when I gave her the recording number R-1948-004, September 1948, she got quiet, in the way lawyers get quiet when the answer just walked into the room. She said, "I'll be there Saturday." She drove up early, took half a cup of coffee into the spare room, and spent the morning with the whole road file. Around noon, she came back to the kitchen table with that look people get when the facts are even worse than they hoped. The real twist, though, came from inside their own board. A board member named Miriam had already started asking questions before I even knew it. She'd checked the county record herself and found the same words Lena found, rite of passage only. She emailed Sandra asking for any recorded instrument giving the HOA management authority. Sandra never produced one because there wasn't one. Miriam saved the emails, the timestamps, the silence. Sometimes the thing that cracks a case open isn't a confession, it's one decent person asking the right question and refusing to forget she asked it. Lena brought in Cal Pruitt, an access rights attorney. He pulled the county files, the planning records, the HOA disclosures. By the time he finished, the picture was ugly. The HOA had collected 14 years of road maintenance fees, $378,000 total, for a road they had no recorded authority to maintain. Worse than that, the gate didn't just violate my easement. It also violated the county ordinance because it narrowed the corridor by 42.4%. At that point, this wasn't a misunderstanding anymore. It was entitlement wearing administrative clothing. Cal told us to get one more thing before making the final move, a current sealed survey. So Ellis Rowart came out with his total station shot. The monuments measured the corridor, photographed the posts, and confirmed exactly what I'd measured years earlier. Posts inside the boundary, footings inside the subsurface. Corridor narrowed more than 42%. Clean, professional, indisputable. We denied every demand attached the recorded instrument, the plat, my objection letters, and the county record summary, and reserved all rights under paragraph 7, the one my father insisted on in 1948. Sandra got that letter, talked to an attorney, and should have backed off right there. Instead, she sent me a second letter claiming the HOA had gained prescriptive management rights through years of open maintenance. That's when I knew this thing would end the hard way. Prescriptive rights only work if the owner never objected. I had objected in writing in 2009, again in 2021, both certified. Her whole theory depended on those letters not existing. They existed. So, on Monday morning, Cal filed the complaint and at the same time sent the formal 30-day removal notice. That started the clock. I kept doing chores, fed cattle, checked water, walked fence, logged the days in the margin of my notebook. Day 5, day 10, day 15. The gate was still there. Day 22, their outside attorney finally saw the mess and called Cal suddenly interested in settlement. Day 28, Sandra asked for a 2-week extension. I said no. 30 days means 30 days. Day 30 landed on a Thursday. At 7 that morning, I was standing at the road entrance with Ellis, a licensed contractor, a crew, a skid steer, a concrete saw, a flatbed trailer, my daughter with a notepad, and a county road inspector off to the shoulder so nobody could pretend confusion later. Sandra never showed. The crew started with the east post. Saw cut around the footing forks under the base, one careful lift. And at 8:05, that pillar came out of the ground with the concrete still hanging on it. They filled the hole, compacted the gravel, leveled the surface, and Ellis reshot the monument line. Clean, open. The west side took longer because the footing had hit rock, but by 9:20 it was out too. Gate panels came down, hinges unbolted, sign removed in pieces. By 11:05, the flatbed held both posts, both panels, the hardware, and that smug little Meadow Lane sign that had spent 4 years pretending my father's work belonged to somebody else. And just like that, the road could breathe again. Ellis measured the corridor one more time. 23.9 feet, monument to monument, exactly where it had lived since 1948 within survey tolerance. I stood in the middle of that restored corridor and looked north to the county highway, open all the way through, no narrowing, no fake entrance, no decorative lie sitting across my history. I took one picture, went back to the house, opened my logbook, and wrote, "Obstruction removed, corridor restored, RE-1948-004 operational." What stayed with me wasn't even the sound of concrete cracking, it was the quiet after. People think justice always feels loud. Yelling, slamming doors, some big movie speech. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes justice sounds like a page, turning a survey rod clicking into place, a saw biting into concrete exactly where the record says it should. And sometimes the lesson comes late. Not that greed exists, because we all know that, but that greed gets dangerous when it borrows the language of order, professionalism, and community. A clean newsletter, a tidy budget, a nice sign at the entrance. And suddenly nobody asks who actually has the right. After the removal, Sandra resigned by email. 2 sentences. No explanation. Miriam stepped in, came to the table honestly, and settled everything. Reimbursement for the removal and survey costs, recorded acknowledgement that the road was mine, formal withdrawal of the prescriptive claim, and permanent recognition that the HOA had right of passage, only nothing more. A few mornings later, I drove the full length of the road at first light. No posts, no sign, just the corridor my father built, the granite monuments he set, and the same clean line through the ranch he recorded back when Harry Truman was president. 76 years that old document sat waiting to do its job. And when the time came, it did. So here's what I keep wondering, and maybe you tell me when people in power know the truth, ignore the record, collect money anyway, and hide behind procedure until somebody forces their hand. Is that just bad management? Or is that theft in a nicer outfit? And what would you have done, waited as long as I did, or cut that gate out years earlier? Tell me where you land on it. Who was right? Who crossed the line? And whether you've ever had to fight somebody who thought confidence mattered more than the law.